Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and I am absolutely delighted to be spending some time with you today. Now, before we jump into this episode, girl, I'm going to share a quote with you that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "That's why I think my life turned out as good as it has, because all the time I'm just trying to have fun." What wonderful words coming to us from American comedian and actress Tiffany Haddish. Now, in this episode, we are sitting down with Nicole Alexander, and we are talking all about professional photography and how it can really elevate not only your listing, but your bottom line. And I know you're going to want to grab a piece of paper and a pen because Nicole drops some amazing tips for us. So I can't wait for you to meet her. Without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Nicole. So today we are here with Nicole Alexander, and she is also known as Nicole the Cabin Hunter. So Nicole, thank you so much for being with us.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, I need to know, obviously, you have a really cool gig in the short-term rental space. You do professional photography, but you are also known as the cabin hunter. Give us the scoop on how you got started in this industry.
So I actually started in weddings, and I still do weddings. So I'm an adventure elopement photographer that travels around the world. About 8 years now, someone actually reached out to me and said that they loved how I captured people in all different kinds of spaces, whether it was in cottages, in the woods, and they really wanted me to come photograph their space to see if I could kind of tell the same story of their property that I could do with people. So 8 years ago, I stepped foot into my first cabin to photograph and fell in love with being able to tell the story of a property, and not just in the real estate style, being able to capture its warmth and, its history, its charm, whatever, the four walls and a roof wanted to tell us. And kind of since then, it's only grown. We literally spent 3 months across Europe this year photographing cabins. We were in Germany, Austria, Scotland, Greece, and a few other places. So it's taking us around the world, which is absolutely amazing. I'm based in Canada, so most of the work that I do is in Ontario or around the country. But I do enjoy being able to get out and see how other people set up their properties and tell the stories, because every country is so different.
Sure, I can imagine. That is so cool that it's taken you all around the world. I'm curious, from your perspective, was it a difficult shift moving from the wedding space to, taking pictures of property? Because and I'm asking for my own benefit as well, because there are times where even the photography that I have for my own properties, I want it to be better, but I don't even know how to articulate what it is that I'm looking for. I mean, I can put it into layman's terms, but from a photography standpoint, how does that get articulated? So number one, was it hard to make the shift? And number two, how do I articulate what I'm looking for in a photographer?
It wasn't hard to make the shift at all. I actually really enjoy being able to sit back, because on wedding days, it's so busy. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you don't have that chance to kind of take a look and experience the light changing in a property, that you would on a wedding day. Is just you get what you get as things are flying.
Right.
So, but at cabins, I typically stay for about 2 nights, and it allows me to walk into the space fresh, completely set, however the owner would like it to be. But then we get to watch the sunrise, we watch the sunsets, we watch the stars come out, and we get to learn about how the light plays into the property. I spend a lot of time talking to the hosts ahead of time about what makes the property special. Tell me about the history. Maybe it's been in their family for 100 years. Maybe they just bought it because it was a cool waterfront space and they thought that they could, do well. So I don't find that the shift was hard. I actually still do incorporate a ton of lifestyle into cabins. So it's really, it's actually, I think it's only benefited me being, somebody that has photographed families, newborns, couples in all different kinds of shapes and light, because it allows me, I think, to only become a better property photographer.
Interesting.
And then to answer your other question on like, how do you properly, share what you're looking for with a photographer? I think it's starting just, from the ground up. Why did you buy the space? Tell me your story on, you bought it. Okay, why did you buy it? Is this area special to you? Did you grow up here coming with your family to the beach and you always just loved the area and you dreamed about having a space here one day? Kind of start with the history of it and then explain why is the space it is. Like, is all the furniture, from your family? Is it from your favorite, local store that you're trying to support? Did you import it from overseas because you're obsessed with a particular kind of style, whether it like over in England or something, and you just like want everything to, have that English country vibe. And then kind of just share as much detail as you can, I think, on why, you love your space. And then just kind of maybe tell them what you've already done. Okay, I had a real estate photographer in here. I've had a photographer in here, but I feel like it's missing that, shareable experience. And when people look at it, they can see themselves in the pictures. And maybe it's simple staging, things like coffees, bonfires, charcuterie boards, like whatever, you already offer within the space. Sometimes it's creating a Pinterest board and just being like, this is what I'm seeing that I don't have in my space, or sharing a favorite property. And then you and the photographer can kind of go together and be like, yes, this is what we can create for you. This is kind of the vision, because every property is different for me. So like, I like to walk in knowing I have a full questionnaire that every host gets that asks a ton of questions so that I have a better understanding of what they want. Because there's nothing worse than you making an investment and then I don't know what you want. I walk into your space and then I deliver something that maybe doesn't quite hit the nail on the head. And then you're disappointed. And then I want to come back and fix that.
Right. I love that you ask a ton of questions up front. I think that's so great and really important. It's funny as you're going through those questions in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, let me think about how I staged that property and let me think about why I bought the furniture I did. And, that's really, really cool. You mentioned investment.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you about that because so often people look at photography as an expense.
Yeah.
And I am curious, from your perspective, why do you feel like it's so important for hosts to invest in high quality, story-driven images instead of just hiring a real estate photographer or, heaven forbid, snapping their own pictures with their iPhone?
And there's nothing wrong with if you need it done and you need your listing done today and up and get live. I totally get, using your iPhone to kind of just get something going. But I think like photos truly are the only thing that are consistently working for you 24/7. So long after you finish your design, your renovation, you're staging the space, that's done its job. But now it's sitting vacant. And if you have subpar photos, how is it going to sell your space and all of your hard work for you? Mm-hmm. I think the big thing is like, your photos tell the charm of the space, its history, its personality, the feeling of the location. But I also think like what's really important is like your guests need to connect with them emotionally. And if you don't hire the right person, a real estate photographer, they're great. They have their own purpose, but I don't think they sell that warmth and that feeling. They go in, they have very quick shoots, and they work with whatever light that they've got the moment that they walk in. If it's rainy, it's not going to kind of show maybe the warm sunlight that pours through your windows. So, and I think the purpose of when you hire a photographer that, specializes in cabin work is, like they know how to be able to portray your space so that your guests can be able to see themselves in the space. And you're creating this sense of FOMO that like they already like want to be there and that's what you want. And then they're looking at your calendar to try and find your next availability. And they don't care if it's winter, if it's summer, like, They think your space is so amazing inside and out that they're happy to be there at any season based on your availability.
That's a really, really different way of looking at photos. And I love it. And candidly, that can extend far beyond cabins. It could be at the beach, or I even have in one of my properties is a farmhouse. It's not a cabin, but what you're saying resonates with any style of property. It just so happens you photograph cabins.
I do everything. Like we did a castle in Scotland. We did a gatehouse that's on a property from the 1600s. The cabin hunter I find in Ontario, everybody calls it either a cabin or a cottage. But a lot of times it's it's something in the woods. It's a beach house. Like, so it's just kind of, I think, how a lot of people call a property an Airbnb now, even though it may not on Airbnb. It's just kind of a word that's kind of been thrown out there.
I love it.
But one other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is when you invest in photography, did you just if you just drop $40,000 on a brand new kitchen and you don't pay to invest in getting proper photos done of it, your investment really just kind of went out the window because you're not doing your property justice now. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is you invest in a tool that increases its perceived value, it strengthens your brand. It's consistently converting people that are browsing, whether it's on your social media, on your listing platforms, into bookings. And it truly does pay for itself. I always say it doesn't instantly necessarily pay for itself. Upon me being there, I share on social media. Sometimes you don't instantly get those bookings. You got to give it time. You got to load everything up to your listing platforms. You've got to do the work to kind of get those photos out there. Because so many times people have hired me and they don't really do a lot with their photos, which breaks my heart because you just made that investment. And now nothing's really being used with the photos. So your property's still sitting stagnant. And they go, well, why isn't it booking? Well, why aren't you using your photos?
Right. And I mean, honestly, there could be other factors at play. I mean, it could be that their pricing is off, that they might have these beautiful photos and that their listing is not written up to snuff. It could be that they're not good hosts. You know what I mean? So there are multiple factors at play. But you're absolutely right. Your photos should be working for you 24/7. And they are a tool that can, which is exciting, right? That's exciting for sure. And I want to ask you too, I know that you don't just photograph the space itself, but some of those magical moments that can happen within it, whether it's a cup of coffee that's steaming or maybe it's, you mentioned the sun coming through the windows, things like that. Why do you feel like those atmospheric or experiential moments matter so much?
I think it's really important to not just showcase the four walls of a property. Those little moments are what guests are kind of they're daydreaming about when someone's booking a property. Or, they want to book a feeling. They want to kind of what I just said, they kind of want to get that sense of FOMO or, I have to send this to my friends because this is such an incredible space. And the thing is about, steaming cup of coffee. It says slow, mornings, you're waking up, probably not working, which would be really nice. You have a bonfire going, whether it's warmth, connection around the fire, having some s'mores, whether you're just sitting back reading a book and relaxing. And I think those moments communicate the experience of staying there, not just the layout. And I think that's something that real estate photography doesn't do. And it's, it also is a way to show off your amenities without being salesy. Because, if you're over there and you're look, I have a hot tub. But if it's you just show the steam coming out of the hot tub on a cold winter day, or, someone's just hanging up there, towel on a hook, it kind of puts you in that space and go, I need to be there. I need to be there now. So I think when guests see those atmospheric details, they begin to be able to put themselves in that space and their own memories are already unfolding. And it gets them excited about going up, knowing that guys, I can't wait to have s'mores around the bonfire with you. Or if you've got your family coming, for all of them to jump off the dock into the lake maybe, or, whatever it might be, you get excited ahead of time. And I think that also allows people to drive up their booking prices because, you get booked out more, you're selling your property in a way that a lot of places aren't. And then it just kind of, the ball keeps rolling, your prices go up and you're booked out, and that's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too is that, one of the things that I take pride in the fact is that I'm very intentional about making sure that my photos are an accurate reflection of the space as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, have you ever been on a shoot where you feel like, whoa, these pictures look way better than the property actually does?
No.
And you haven't. Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting point now also with AI coming out where like really people are starting to use AI to tweak their spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe like I have an honest conversation with the host that say like, I'm photographing your property as is. I'll style things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not moving your furniture around though. I'm not going to make the space look different than, what it is, because that I think is dishonest sales.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse than walking into a space and being like, this doesn't look like what I was sold. And
Right.
that's not something that I'm here to do. I have seen people move a ton of indoor furniture outside to try and make the outside look, like, wow. And like, there are those moments people try to do that to go viral and stuff. And, it looks really cool, but it's not honest and it's not real.
You didn't start this business to feel like a full-time property manager with no boundaries and a phone that never sleeps. Let's build what you really came for. At the Short-Term Rental Virtual Summit for Women, we're teaching you how to create a business that's scalable, sustainable, and not glued to your hip. February 4th through 6th, it's all virtual and it's just $47. This is where things start to shift. Go grab your ticket right now at strvirtualsummit.com. I think where I'm coming from, and I'm curious if you've ever had this experience when purchasing a home, like the photos look great. And it's not that anything is moved or different, but you get into the property and it's like, ooh, this doesn't look as nice as the photos.
I think for me, a lot of the times it's the reverse. The place is pretty poorly photographed to begin with, and that's why they're hiring me to make it look better. There have been times where I've walked into properties and it is gross, like it hasn't been cleaned well, and that's something that like I always say to every owner, I'm happy to provide you feedback. I'm happy to let you know if I feel like you're missing anything, or just like honest feedback as someone that's spending a night or two in your space. So there are times where I'd say the photos are lying. They're just missing certain things, like it not being clean, or maybe the outdoor space isn't as well manicured as it's showcased. And it could just be the cleaner just couldn't make it that week, or, like the groundskeeper like wasn't able to get on site and mow the lawn. But I do think like there is definitely places out there that people have tried to make nicer. I have yet to really walk into a space where it is a full 180 of this is not what I was expecting at all.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fair. I'm curious, when you look at people's listings online who are not investing in the experiential photography, what are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing when it comes to their photos?
They're not using proper lighting. If they're using their phone, they're cropping the photos poorly. They're not showing the entire space. If you've got an A-frame cabin, for example, and you're not showing the full peak, the roof and everything that the grandeur of maybe this property can do, I definitely think those are things that people are missing. They're not showing off all of their amenities. If you have a hot tub, but you don't have a photo of your hot tub, what are you doing? That's a huge sales part, I think. So I think that's really important. I think a lot of people I've seen a lot of people not photograph all their bathrooms and their bedrooms. They just kind of showcase their main spaces, which I think is really important to showcase, because people want to know where people are going to sleep. How many bathrooms are there? Are they like, you can tell me you've got 3 bathrooms, but I want to see them before I book, if I'm booking for like a large family. I think things like, the cozy corners that could become people's favorite spaces, but maybe as a host, you don't see that. You just see like, this is my favorite angle. This is my favorite spot. Showing how natural light moves through a space, I think is really important too. Do you get sunrise that just pours through a bedroom or a main space that people are like, I have to get up for sunrise to see this? I think you have to go through and walk into your space as if you're like visiting it for the first time. Sometimes it's even great if you have a family member or friends that have never come up and just ask for their opinion throughout their stay of like, what are you experiencing? Tell me like, what do you think should be, showcased to kind of make this place sell? Really, I think it's showing the personality of the property. If you're a log cabin in the woods, do you get deer that walk out into the front lawn every day? Photograph it or capture a little video. Not everything has to be done professionally. Sometimes it's those quick little phone videos that literally sell everything.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Like you mentioned, hey, if you need to get something up and fast, maybe it's fine to use your iPhone until, you can get professional photography. But I just want to circle back. Is there ever a time where you feel like, okay, sometimes those candid shots or the non-professional shots actually are of benefit as well? And are they good enough?
I think they're really important for stories. If you're heavy on social media, people want real. They want raw. They don't want a perfectly curated grid unless that's what you do as a job as a photographer. Like people want to see if, you own a property and, your family's there. They want to maybe see the kids jumping in the lake. They want to see your family enjoying the space. They want to maybe see you, if you're there doing a turnover, show it, run a time lapse or just talk to the camera about why turnovers are hard, why they're priced the way they are, why guests need to check out at, if it's 10, 11, noon, whatever time, because your clean team needs to be able to spend 6 hours, turning it over because whatever you value as, in your cleaning. So I think there's a time and a place for all of that. Even reels, most reels do well if they're authentic. Just try and throw a nice cover photo on there. I think if you're going to use your phone, learn how to use an editing tool, whether you want to go simple with Canva. I know you had a few people talk recently about their social media, experiences and stuff. If you can figure out Lightroom, if there's a lot of really good, simple editing apps for your phone that are really basic, just to make things look nice and cohesive. I think that's what people are looking for is, especially on either Airbnb, Vrbo, Instagram, just something that's cohesive and consistent so that people aren't coming on who's running this account? It's just a mess.
Right. I'm curious, when you're out photographing, are you also seeing that you have to restyle things in multiple houses? So what are some of those mistakes that you see people as they're prepping to have photography done? What are they missing, number one, or what are they overlooking?
So a lot of times that kind of is a part of my conversation prior to arriving is I always say I'm not bringing a carload worth of stuff to style into your property because that is dishonest marketing. Mm-hmm. I'll bring a candle or two. I'll bring a box of s'mores. I'll bring meat and cheeses and stuff for the charcuterie boards because obviously those are things that our guests are also bringing. But I typically work with the host and I'm if you want to style your place, now's the chance to do it before I come. Get fresh pillows for your couches and your beds. Extra throws and blankets and stuff. Add super cozy little, touches around the spaces that I can then take your blankets and move them around. There's nothing worse than walking into a property and there is nothing that I can use to style. No books, no candles, no blankets, because I'll move them around. Yeah.
If you're in short-term rentals, please don't have candles in your property. Make sure they're fake candles.
That's okay.
We don't want our guests to burn down our property. Sorry, I had to jump in.
You're totally fine. A lot of fake candles, sometimes it's just nice to have one exactly in the behind you, just on the book, just to kind of show, turn it on, let it do its little flicker in the window. Mm-hmm. Have nice coffee mugs, because the thing is, I'll have hosts say to me, please do not share my coffee mugs. They're ugly. Okay, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm not bringing my home set.
Right. Interesting.
So if you're not happy with what you have at your property and you don't want it photographed, now's the time to change it before someone shows up to photograph it, because they're going to use everything and anything that you have in the space. And if there's something that you're dying for that maybe you've seen I've shot before, I just say like, let's have a conversation about it. Like I have like little like fake lanterns that like I bring out at night. Can do cool star shots. I bring my dog with me. So like those are things that like I can bring.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do styling with like clothing. You throw a bathing suit like on the dock with some shoes and a coffee or a glass of wine. Those are things I can happily bring. But you don't want to bring like 10 inflatables for a waterfront property if you don't have the inflatables.
Right. It sounds like you have a very creative eye. And I want to go back to my original question where how is it if someone is not hiring you and they're looking for a local photographer in their market and all they find who are currently shooting short-term rentals are the real estate photographers? What types of things are they looking for when it comes to if they're looking for a photographer that, shoots families? What types of things do they look for to know, okay, this person is creative? Because you obviously are very creative.
I'd say look outside of the real estate space, exactly like what you just said. Look into the wedding photographer space. We are used to shooting so many different things in different light, and quickly when we have to. So like that's a great place to start. A lot of the times, like I've seen many wedding photographers over the years, they've photographed in properties for engagement sessions, weddings. I do a lot of very small weddings, so like 10 people and under. And a lot of people get married at a cottage because it's a great place to rent. They are a low-key group, so why not? But I think like start with a mood board. If there's a few properties that you love, whether they're local, whether they're abroad, create like a little mood board, whether it's on Pinterest, whether it's on Canva, and just put together like 10, 20 photos that like, if you could have the world and these photos, were created for you of your property, you'd be over the moon. I think that's a really good place to start. And then like reach out to a few people and be like, this is my vision. It hasn't been met before. Is this something you think you can help me with? Like, have you styled spaces before? Have you styled properties? And maybe ask for to see work. So anytime someone inquires with me, I send them 5 of my full galleries so that they can go through and see very different situations. I send them log cabins. I send them properties down in I did one in Honduras. I sent them one from Scotland. So that way you can kind of see everything. You get an understanding of what I can do for you. So ask to see galleries, ask to see their work because social media can be fake.
No, that's a really good piece of advice to create a mood board proactively and ask if it's something that they can deliver on. I love that idea. Now, my next question is, what if they say, oh, sure, yeah, I can? How do you get through whether they really can or can't?
Contracts are, you can go the legal route. I think it comes down to if you're unsure, give them every tool possible to make it a success. So if you have a lot of styling stuff in those photos and you really want charcuterie boards with wine or, you want a bonfire shot, make sure you leave them the wood, the starters, the lighter. So that way it's so easy for them to walk in and be like, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to shoot it. But I think you can tell through someone's work if you look through some of their galleries. You'll get a sense. If you really want those drone photos, make sure you see enough of their drone work that you're probably going to get what what you're asking for. Because if someone says, oh, yeah, no problem, I can fly a drone, but you only see that they've only ever posted one drone photo, maybe it's time to look at somebody else. I think also we go back to kind of the point of an investment. Typically, the people that are going to charge you very little don't have that experience. But the people that, have typically higher rates, they have the clout, they have, the portfolios to show for it, they're going to come in and they're going to deliver. And somebody may not have a questionnaire and be as thorough as I am. So maybe, as a first-time person hiring a photographer, just be like, I'm not telling you how to do your job. These are just my 10 dream shots that if you could help make my life easier, this is all I would ask out of this shoot.
I'm curious now that we're talking about, what someone might expect from an investment perspective, I do think it's important that we highlight that because, someone might be listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, what is she talking about? Is she talking about $1,000, $10,000, $100,000? And I'm not here by any stretch of the imagination for you to tell us your rates. I'm just saying, generally speaking, if someone is going to make an investment in photography, fly a photographer in to take photos of their property, what budget range do you feel like is reasonable? And then what should they expect on number of photos for what they're getting?
I think that's a great question. Every photographer is different. Depends on the region, depends on their experience. I'd say expect to spend at least $1,500 to $2,000 if they're local. If they're not local, I always have that conversation. I build custom packages for everybody. So if you reach out to me, I have to jump on a flight. I break down everything and I say, listen, I am trying to make this as cost effective for you as possible. I look for discounts and stuff, but I think people can spend upwards of $10,000, $15,000 if you're flying someone abroad or if you're flying somebody, from Canada down into the States. Mm-hmm. And also it depends on your deliverables, exactly like what you said. And most people are pretty flexible. I'd say, for the lower end shoots, you might get 20, 30, 40 photos. So kind of, I would say that's more your basic listing photos just to put up on your property. Not a ton of styling, if you leave them stuff to do, they'll style with that. I'd say then you go into kind of the next few packages where you might be getting reels or raw video footage, lots of drone content. Typically in my higher packages, I talk to you about, do you want to bring in models? And when I say models, I mean just a nice family or a couple that can kind of come in that are real, authentic, but give you that actual bodies in the space and you can see people, right. So it's not just me styling and then you kind of just get me over in the corner, my dog over here. Because I can't always
talking about Cindy Crawford, basically, is what you're saying.
No. So typically I tried to do a local model call to bring in to just elevate that. But all of my packages are very custom. So it depends on what you need. And I say let's talk the big dream package. The big dream package typically is 100 plus photos, multiple reels. If you're using social media, bringing in a family or a couple for a lifestyle session, I'm there for 2-3 nights. And then anything else that you might need. Some people need help creating a walking guide. I can do that. I used to do property management for 2 years. So I know the back end of a lot of that stuff. I can help them rewrite their listings if they need that help. So really it's talk to your photographer about kind of what you're looking for, but know that Airbnb likes 40 photos, roughly. Mm-hmm. It's, Verbo likes 30, 40 photos because they want to be able to see your space. If you've got a teeny tiny property and you only need 20, that's perfect. But if you've got a 10,000 square foot property, you're going to need a lot more than that because assume 2 to 4 good quality photos per room.
Okay.
Then you want inside, outside. If your property gets sunrise over sunset, you're going to want photos from the ground, drone photos, maybe a bonfire if you have a bonfire pit or if you've got a hot tub. And then start to think about all the amenities. Once you add up that list, all of a sudden you're at 60, 80, sometimes 100 photos. So I also think it's on the host to kind of spend some time being what do they need?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always say, don't hire someone just to go photograph just your kitchen, because then your photos aren't going to be cohesive.
Yep.
Get a nice refresh. Doesn't have to be a lot. It can be 20, 25 photos. I do that. I come up for just the day. Mm-hmm. We can talk about if you really want sunset. I'll stay there for sunset and then I head out. And then that way you don't have to pay for a massive cleaning fee because I've stayed overnight, have to do the sheets and stuff too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think long answer short, $1,500, upwards of $10,000, depending on if you're flying someone and you're really making the biggest investment of your life. You can also do seasonal photos. I think that's really important. If you live in a space that gets all 4 seasons, 3 seasons, really important to make that investment multiple times in a year or 2, because you're going to see the investment come back. I know that sounds like a scary number, but a lot of people throw in $10,000 easily to a new bathroom renovation. And they don't think twice about that. But then hiring a photographer can seem really scary when they don't necessarily see the final product and, the return on investment until sometimes a few months down the road.
Sure. It is scary. You're absolutely right. And the other thing, I just want to highlight from a real estate investment perspective, we know as real estate investors, I'm making this up, if we invest $10,000 into a bathroom, we can be fairly certain based on comps that we're going to be adding value to the property. We're adding equity to the property. And I think what you're trying to get across, Nicole, is that when you also invest in the photography to highlight all the beautiful upgrades you've made, you're adding to the cash flow because you're going to generate better bookings. You're going to generate a higher average daily rate, most likely, because you are acting as a magnet for your ideal guest. As you mentioned, that guest is emotionally tied to the property. They're emotionally pulled in. Absolutely. And they don't care if they're coming in the middle of winter. They're like, I want to stay there.
They say the average is about 40% if you that your revenue increases when you invest in professional photos. Which,
and to your point, there are different levels of professional photos too.
Yes, there are. Right? Yep. There could be your neighbor down the street that's got a good camera. Right. Awesome. And if that's all you can afford, I get it. Everybody has different budgets. Some people spend all their money on their renovation. But I always say that's the most important thing to make sure you save money for when you're doing a flip and you're getting a new space ready, or, you've gutted the place, whatever it might be, save money at the end. I have people reach out a year in advance and say, we're building, we're not there yet. We don't know when we're going to be exactly ready, but we'd like you to come help us launch the property. And then, we talk about packages. I just put a pin in to follow up with them, see how they're doing. And then, typically once they're ready to go, I'm there as the final, pieces are being put into the kitchen, whatever it is, and they've done their full clean and they're ready to launch. And that is so helpful to click on a brand new listing, on Airbnb where it says new, and it looks unbelievable.
Yeah. So good. I have one last question. If someone is looking to just upgrade maybe 3 or 5 hero images on their listing, what do you feel like the most important images to grab would be?
I think what I've found recently is a photo of your living space seems to be what people want to see, because that's where they're probably going to spend their most time. And then think through your key amenities. Do you have a great waterfront with a dock? People can bring their boat. If you have a beautiful bedroom, show a bedroom, because you're going to want to hit all the big pieces. So then you've got outside, your living space, bedroom. If you can get a great drone shot, sunrise, sunset, midday, just to kind of be able to give a sense of how big your property is, what does it look like? People can then also see your driveway. If you are in the forest, if you're on the water, wherever you're located, if you're in the mountains, then people can really be blown away by kind of the whole grandeur of everything. And then I'd say throw an amenity in there. Hot tub, sauna, whatever else you might have. If you've got a swimming pool, throw it in. If you've got a really cool golf course, some people have some really cool and wild, amenities. Show off whatever's making your property unique, because you're trying to stand out in a pretty busy market. So you're trying to make sure you hit all of those things that if people are only looking at your 5 photos, they can go, I get enough of it. I'm willing to book.
Yep. All right. So good. I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'm just going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. The first one is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Anywhere that has mountains.
Ooh, that does not surprise me. Do you have a certain set of mountains that are your favorite?
The Rocky Mountains in Canada.
Rocky Mountains. Wonderful. Okay, what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
New Zealand.
Okay, that came off the tongue pretty fast. That sounds like you've always wanted to go there.
We were supposed to get married there, but COVID happened, and
Oh,
that's okay. We're waiting for our kids to be old enough to be able to fly them down without them losing their minds on a 24-hour flight. So we'll get down there. We figure maybe our 10-year vow renewal we can do down there with the kids.
oh, amazing. How old are your kiddos?
I've got a 2-year-old and we've got one due in January.
Oh, well, congratulations, girl. I would have never known from looking at the top. When I was 9 months pregnant, I was like, bloaty, and you look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I don't feel like, I've definitely gained the weight, but it's worth it for, the sweet little kids we get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Next question is, what's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rental photography?
Ooh. People will tell you how to do your job. Listen to what they want to tell you, because it's probably not trying to tell you how to do it. They want to get something out of it, like their dream shot, and they just don't know how to properly articulate it. So listen, work with them, align with them, and they will be happy, and they'll likely become repeat clients and potentially good friends.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Slow down.
Ooh, now that's different. Tell me about that.
I'm a workaholic. So I think slow down in so many different ways. Slow down and, take a step back, look at your business. Slow down while you're shooting a cabin so that you can actually absorb a space as a guest would and be like, okay, I love how this is happening over here. And it's starting to tell its story, so that you're not just constantly trying to get the shots that you have maybe in a shot list, but you're actually experiencing the space as it's meant to be experienced.
Mm-hmm. So good. That is so good. I love that. Slow down. All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
My husband.
Amazing. And how did you meet him?
We met through mutual friends 13 years ago.
Wow.
And the rest is history. He comes with me to many cabins. He travels with me a lot abroad, and he is the most supportive human being, just very caring and kind, and he's an incredible father. So very, very thankful to have him in my life.
Amazing. Amazing. Nicole, if someone is listening and are feeling like, I need to reach out to this girl to see if she can photograph my property, where is the best place for them to find you online?
They can either find me at my website, thecabinhunter.com. There's an inquiry form right on there, or you can reach out to me on social media, which is, they're all at The Cabin Hunter. The best place is Instagram. You can see a lot of what I do, and I typically respond pretty quick.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Stacey. It was really nice to be here and chatting with you.
Girl, you don't need another webinar filled with vague tips and zero real help. You need to know what's actually working from women who've built short-term rental businesses that don't burn them out. That's exactly what's happening at the Short-Term Rental Virtual Summit for Women, February 4th through 6th. 3 days, zero fluff, and it's just $47. This is clarity, confidence, and community all in one room. Go grab your ticket right now at strvirtualsummit.com.